Schools of the future or the future of schools. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about this interesting phenomenon. Why? For two reasons. One, I'm back to my role as a teacher. Two, I know many of you who follow me on my social media and also in my community talk about what's happening with this pandemic and also what's happening especially on the education sector, focusing on schools in India. So I thought, why not? Let's understand, let's use this time to make the most of what's going to be the future of schools in India. Hello everyone, my name is CSK and I am your personal coach. In my channel, through various videos, my mission has been to enable and empower people to explore more vistas in their life. Today, I am here to talk to you about an important aspect which engulfs my life, that is schools and future. So this topic itself is quite interesting and also intriguing because here you see schools of the future, at the same time future of schools. So the operating word here being future. Let's spend a couple of minutes on that. Future. Aren't we all interested in our future? Each one of us, you and me, want to spend more time in our future, and that's the very reason why we are excited about our future. But that being said, let's spare a thought, let's spare a minute to look at the future for our own little ones, our children who actually carry the dreams, our unfulfilled dreams, into the future. So where are they going to spend time? Their time, as all of us know, is in schools. But that being said, let me set the context for today's discussion. Today I'm going to talk about three important aspects. One is the future itself and also what are the factors which are contributing to the future. Two, with that as the foundation, let's look at reimagining the schools. And three, we will discuss various aspects which compromises and contributes to the reimagination process. So let's get started, and I'm going to go on and off with this whiteboard, the flip chart. So stay with me, take notes, and also share your thoughts through comments, because this is the first time I'm getting back to my classroom, and that's why I want you all to participate into this conversation, because this, as simple as it may sound, is very, very, very important for our lives. All right, let's get started then. So, back in 2020, that is last year, we were all gifted with the National Education Policy. The NEP 2020, as it is popularly called as, is a path-breaking policy by the Government of India. The policy is almost perfect in its text and print. But what remains to be seen is how it is going to impact and be implemented at the ground level, because what gets implemented is what matters at the end of the day. So NEP, along with the pandemic, the situation around us, brought in a lot of topics for debate. Few topics which I have listed here, the first one being the debate versus the physical infrastructure, the physical aspect of schooling versus the digital and the virtual schools. As we all begin, we talk about the physical infrastructure, how big, how palatial, how sprawling the campus is in the pre-pandemic world. And today, we are now shifting our focus to how equipped digitally and how virtually engulfing is the operations in the school and off the school. So that's the debate which is happening around us. The second debate is on edtech versus face-to-face. Over the last 17 months or so, we have had enormous exposure and experiments which talks about edtech and technology-driven education or technology-driven reaching out to students, the learners. But the debate is still on as to what is more effective. Is it tech or technology-driven learning and teaching, or is it the age-old traditional face-to-face? And there is a lot of consensus getting developed among people and stakeholders that the hybrid model, that is the best of the two, is the only way going forward. The third such area for debate is skills and skill building. Are we going on content focused learning, or should we focus on concept oriented learning? And that gives rise to this new jargon or the catchword for today, the skill building. And all of us know that schools are not just to fill the child with information. Schools are there to equip the child for future with skills of tomorrow. So that's another debating point. Now, these three debating points have now further given rise to certain ingredients. And now what are the ingredients? One is accelerated learning. There is one school of thought which talks about last 17 months there is enormous loss of learning. And now as the states and the country is getting ready to open schools, we need to come up with mechanisms to accelerate learning. Now how do we do that? That's an area which educators all across the country and also in the world are contemplating and also adopting. Second is differentiated instructional intervention. What is that? Differentiated instructional intervention is there are a lot of people who have been exposed due to this pandemic. Let me explain. There are categories of people who did not have access to gadgets and technology. So that is one category. There are categories of people who had access to technology but could not cope up with online learning and teaching. That's another category. Then there comes this category of people who, in spite of being exposed to technology, in spite of having gadgets, in spite of having the best of the best technological acumen, are simply not able to grasp concepts, and their standards has suddenly started to fall. Those high achievers are now at the mercy of the system. Now, who do not know about the grading mechanisms of the CBSE and the central boards of ICSE, where high achievers were forced to settle for a lesser score thanks to the historical average mechanism. So differentiated instructional intervention also becomes important as we go ahead in this pandemic and post-pandemic. Then the next important aspect, which may not affect you and me directly but does affect the society at large, is expansion of the government schooling system. Yes, across the board, across the states, from the south to the north to the east to the west, we have seen that there is a high degree of enrollment in the government schools, for the simple reason that for once there has been very little distinction between private schools and government schools thanks to the pandemic. Now the question being asked is, are our government schools capable enough of servicing or catering to the growing demand in the country among the students? Migration being one of the key factors which is pushing this factor of expansion of the government school system. Now with that being said, let me set this context well. Now with that as the context, with all these factors, kind of variables in the environment of schools, the future of schooling needs to be well thought of. For that, you got to travel with me for the next stage of this particular video, and that is reimagining schools. Now give me a minute as I flip the chart so that you get ready with thoughts on reimagining schools. Now, reimagining schools, what I have done is focused on 4 key areas, and then I also have put in some talking points so that we all can discuss and also examine in our reality around us. Remember, you may be watching this video from up north in the country, from Delhi, Haryana or Uttar Pradesh, or further high from Jammu Kashmir, or deep south in Kanyakumari or Tamil Nadu or Kerala, or from the western part of the country or even the eastern part, including the Union Territories. But what remains is the schools are to be focused for the future, because the future of this country, our children, are enrolled in schools. So let's get to the first point. Many problems, few problem solvers. Now, there has been an enormous debate on job seekers versus job creators. Let's go one step deeper, and the root at which that is lack of problem solvers. Now, the schools of the future, if I have to reimagine them, has to focus on schools without walls. Now, what do I mean by schools without walls? Am I talking about virtual schools and digital schools? No. I am talking about opening up our schools for the future. What does that mean? That means learners will explore outdoors. The NEP has already brought in 1 day a week where the child is free to go out and learn for himself or herself. Today, education, qualification and learning is not restricted only to the school campus or the premises, but the future of schools should focus on exploring outdoors and encouraging, pushing the children to explore outdoors and push those walls down. They want to more out of the campus and engage with artisans, craftsmen, with maybe entrepreneurs, maybe specialists from different walks of life, and learn and grasp information and knowledge from them. The second one is students should get more green in their approach. Now, this is not about holding a poster and saying we support the planet and the environment or we are against global warming. But in every action, in every thought, in every idea, the students should start focusing on keeping it green in their approach. The third one is getting technologically empowered. What do I mean by getting technologically empowered? It's not about handling a gadget or logging onto the Wi-Fi network or trying to send a Snapchat or an Instagram chat or creating a Facebook account or even that email or that bulk mail. No, it's about using technology to solve their administrative work for teachers and using technology to reduce the burden of duplicacy. Yes, students can really do that. Today there are a number of options where children can collaborate, converge the thought processes and also their problem solving abilities through technology. So tech empowerment is important from across the spectrum. Last but not the least is most important, linking learning to life. Yes, there has been enough debate about life skills. We are all talking about what do we learn in our class 5, class 8, class 9 has little or no relevance on our real life outside the school. That should stop and that has to come to an end, which means we need to establish clear connects between conceptual learning inside the class or in the school or during the school time or during the study hours to our own life, which is how are we applying that knowledge into real life scenarios. Case studies as another example where we can understand and explore how problems can be solved using wisdom, using knowledge, using information. Now, that being said, let's go to the next part. And the next part is one size do not fit all. Yes, all of us know the fact that schools come in different sizes, different forms and different shapes and different boards. But what we don't understand is we can't just bracket every school in the country into broad categories like English medium school, private school, public school or a government aided school. No, it doesn't work like that. We got to create or think creatively about schools as centers of excellence. Yes, I'll pause here for a while. Look at a school. Each and every school has a center of excellence. What does that mean? There can be a center of excellence for sports inside a school, a school which can be a coding university in itself for that age group of children between 4 to 14. There can be different schools catering to different centers of excellence. We need to look at that, and that's why I say one size do not fit all, which means we got to have innovative pedagogy and again differentiation. Different people, different strokes, and different ways of reaching out, so that there is a slow learner in your classroom, there is a mediocre student, and there is a high achiever, but everyone gets a challenging task day over day. That's the whole idea. Now here, learners will create knowledge, thus create jobs. Yes, there has been enough debate about, okay, what are we preparing our students for? We are preparing our students for the future, but we don't know what the future is. We are preparing our students for some jobs which may not even exist today. One of the debates like that is accountants and cash counters or cashiers do not exist in the next 10 years. Now, who will be trained, or why will anybody be incentivized to get trained for that? Fair enough, but we should not focus on the future of jobs. What we should focus on is creating new knowledge, because eventually the new knowledge will give rise to new jobs. And that's how things have been evolving in the past. And if you want to take a leaf out of the past, that's the way to look into the future. Then embrace and thrive in a culture of innovation. Enough and more has been said about innovation, but schools should be the places where children are free to innovate. Pandemic has taught us one important thing, that you got to adapt and adopt a new mechanism, a new technology, a new technique every day after day, which means you got to be on your toes to innovate. How about creating a culture of innovation in our schools? So just a quick recap here. Reimagining schools will talk or start from schools without walls and innovative pedagogy and differentiation. While you spend your thoughts on these things, let me take you to the next level, which is the two more factors which contribute towards reimagining schools. All right, so as we have discussed the future of schools and the schools in the future, let's come to the third point about reimagining schools. Future is fast and furious. Well, there is no debate about it. The future is changing than what we can ever imagine. That's the truth. But future is fast and furious also means imagining the unknown and seeing the unseen. Let me explain this. I've already started by talking about new skills. New skills will create new jobs. That being said, there are also a few other things which we need to take care when we talk of future and the furiousness with which it is changing. Number one, we got to prepare our students for a better ability or for having better capacity to deal and handle with fake news. Yes, that's the flip side of the coin when it comes to technological advancement. So fake news is going to be even more visible and applicable to all of us in our lives, and we got to be careful and prepared for that. Second, there is always this swing between depth and width, which is today children have to be prepared for both. What does that mean? They got to be generalists, they got to be knowing everything or a little bit of everything, but at the same time they got to also go deep into being specialists. That's what I mean by saying swing between breadth and depth, or depth and width. So here, as a teacher, as an educator, as a parent, and even as a student, you got to spend some time in understanding the swing and balancing the two. Then virtual teams and remote working. New skills and new jobs are one part of the story, but the big part of the story is virtual teams and remote working. How are we able to handle our collaboration issues? How are we able to handle our team management skills? How are we able to balance our EQ with IQ? For you don't see people or meet people like how we used to meet in our pre-COVID days, which means we got to be that much more sensitive and that much more empathetic, and also bring in new ways of socio-emotional collaboration, learning strategies. So that's the point which I want to make when it comes to reimagining schools. And the last but not the least is very, very important: open and engaged system. Yes, we all know that the society or school is a microcosm of the larger society. We can find a doctor's child, an engineer's child, an auto puller's child, or even a teacher's child inside the classroom. So that's what I mean by saying all rungs of life are available in the school. But that also means the school should now, the future of the schools and the future schools in India should look at being more open and more engaged. What do I mean by that is parents, community, and civil society should come together to build schools and to build more vibrancy into the system. Now, don't take this as a responsibility. Take this as your right to intervene into schools, not just because your parents or your child is studying there or you had an alumni status with that school. No, even if you are located in a particular area and you have a school in your vicinity, may it be a government school or a private school, it is your right to contribute to the wellness and the vibrancy of that particular school. That is where it becomes an open and engaged school. Now you may ask me, but why will the school allow me? Why not? If you have a value to add, who will in their proper mind stop you? So you got to be that salesman to push through your skills through the walls, through the penetration of the mind at the school. So that's what I mean by open and engaged. And this is also important for the school leaders. You got to open up your arms, your mind, and also your gates to welcome more and more people from the community to contribute. Bonding beyond boundaries. I have been hearing many examples of exchange programs, collaborative projects, activity-based learning, where students from India have collaborated with students from Australia or America or even Middle East. That's bonding beyond boundaries, and the future schools will be that way. So today you have a student from your class and you can profile your student or your classroom, but very soon that profiling will be more diverse, will be more demographic, and at the same time it will be more demanding. So please be ready about it, and that's the future of schools. Now with this being said, let me conclude with a simple thought, and the thought is this: the future of schools and the schools of the future are tied by the word future. But how is that word tying to you and me? Is because we have our stake in the future. We are citizens of this country, we are educators here, we are parents here, we are also societal leaders in our own right, in our own profession, in our own occupation, and we have this moral, ethical, and also fundamental responsibility of building this nation. Because don't forget, the future of our country is enrolled in the classrooms of today. So friends, thank you so much for joining, but I know that there are a lot of areas which we can debate and discuss, and I am open. And if you want me to cover anything in particular in a greater detail, I'll be more than happy to do that, but only when you bring it up. So do use that comment column to put down your comments, reach out to us, and we at CSK Speaks are ever happy to talk about education, because I believe education is the greatest leveler on this planet. Thank you.